I tried to do this on my computer laptop, and I couldn't get it. It didn't work very well. So this is a special report on the events that occurred yesterday regarding Donald Trump. But I'm going to share his birth chart with you, and I'm going to go over some very specific aspects that could have been warnings that this was going to happen, not only yesterday, but on July 13th, as well as what could transpire in the future. So here's what I have. We're going to start off with Donald Trump's birth chart. And what I can't show you the chart, but I'm just going to kind of explain it a little bit. So starting off on Donald Trump, he was born June 14th, 1941, I believe, or somewhere around there. And I do have his exact birth. I just don't have it written down right here. And as like last time, I have to read what I've written, and I want to show you something here real quick. Is one of the reasons why I have troubles reading my own writing is because of this mess, and it's sometimes it gets really messy. But I cannot type and try to do this. So this is the only way I can do it. So please bear with me again. All right, now, Donald Trump in his birth chart, just his birth chart, he has 9 squares. The first square is Mars. Please take that back. On July 13th, we're going to start with the first assassination attempt. On July 13th, Donald Trump had 9 squares. Mars squaring Mars, Saturn squaring the moon, Uranus, the sun, and both nodes. Also, Uranus squaring Mars, and finally, he had Mercury squaring both nodes. In Donald Trump's natal chart, the sun is at 22 degrees of Gemini, so his sun sign is Gemini. The nodes of fate are at 20 degrees of Gemini and Sagittarius, and which his north node is in Gemini, his south node is in Sagittarius. And Uranus is at 17 degrees of Gemini. This is in his birth chart. The sun, the north node, and Uranus are all in a stellium in his birth chart. And they are in the 11th house, and the south node is at 20 degrees of Sagittarius in the 5th house. And I believe that is conjunct the moon. And that also is in his birth chart. Being this is his natal birth chart, it depicts his personality and his behaviors. So let's go with that for a minute. For the purpose of this reading, I am going to decipher the natal chart, but I'm only going to highlight certain areas that could have warned him about the assassination attempts. So, starting with his sun at 22 degrees. Now remember, personality behaviors is what we are looking at right now. The 22nd degree is about a person having a passion for the truth that expresses itself in writing and in speech. And one of Donald Trump's greatest claims to his person is his ability to be a great negotiator. And this degree is about public intellectuals participating in big issues of the day and pushing other people, which would be us, the public, to taking up his crusade. So in a nutshell, it's sensationalistic bids for attention. And that's what it says. I'm reading this from my sources. Now, moving on to the 20th degree. Being born with the degree is selling an idea or product which is himself to the public. It's about mentally calculating the odds of success and experimenting with different combinations to basically, he assesses his public for how to most effectively gain their favor. You just can't make this stuff up, can you? And this is all in his chart. Finally, we go to the 17th degree of Gemini. And to quote my source, it says, now the reason I'm quoting my source on most of this is because I want you to understand that astrology is one of the oldest forms of history, and it is how the ancients actually managed days, months, years, etc., by how the stars and planets aligned and moved in the sky. And so whenever someone is born, we have what is considered a blueprint of their life, and it is stamped, never to be moved, never to change. And a person's personality is garnered by this astrological stamp. Okay, moving on. Where was I at? Okay. Let's finally we go to the 17th degree of Gemini, and to quote my sources, it says, having enough faith in oneself to develop one's innate faculties versus trying to conform to other people's expectations. That goes without saying. Veering away from being judged by others. He doesn't care what other people think. And we all know that, especially when they fail to measure up. And when he thinks that other people dislike his behavior, he considers it a witch hunt. We all know this. Okay, Donald Trump never takes responsibility for his own behavior. As a matter of fact, he displays openly disdain for those who do not agree with his views, and he openly ridicules and demoralizes those, and sometimes even demonizes them. But in his eyes, he is making a grand sacrifice for the greater good. This is who he is. It's just that simple. It does not make him a bad or evil person. It just not really the way 99% of the people would handle things, period. He handles them in his own way, and he's not going to change. Moving to his Mercury at 8 degrees of Cancer. This is going to be a pivotal point regarding the assassination attempts as well. But in his birth chart, it is at 8 degrees of Mercury is seeing through people's, in his birth chart, what the eighth degree is saying is that, I get confused in my own reading sometimes, and I apologize. So, going back, in his chart, what Mercury at the 8th degree is saying is, he's seeing through people's pretensions, made-up facades, and fakeness, and social postures to their underlying motives. And he trusts his own opinion and his own intellect. In essence, Donald is hell-bent on exposing others' weaknesses and false images. He puts other people's characters and behaviors on display, but at the same time almost demands we, the public, accept his behaviors and characteristics without question. Why? Because he is not fake. With him, what you see is what you get. And he has said this hundreds of times. He has said, I have nothing to hide. And that's the truth. He has nothing to hide. He's got things that he doesn't think is any of your business, but he has nothing whatsoever to hide. He is, what you see with Donald Trump is exactly what you get. Now, excuse me. The last natal aspects I'm going to cover before I go into the transits on July 13th is the South Node and the Moon. Donald Trump was born during an eclipse, during a lunar eclipse, in Sagittarius in the 5th house at 20 degrees and 21 degrees, respectively. But being born during a solar eclipse literally means having difficulty balancing logic and emotions. Communicating is not always effective. Loyalty is fiercely important to him, and He is destined for greatness. My hair is going in my ear now. Now I'm going to go into the events that occurred on July 13th. As these transits move through Donald Trump's birth chart, we will go back to Gemini at 22 degrees. In the first and the first attempt. This occurred at 6:10 p.m. on July 13th, and he had 9 active squares. The Sun at 22 degrees, the North Node at 20 degrees, the Uranus at 17 degrees, and Gemini all squared the transiting Saturn at 19 degrees of Pisces. But Saturn is in the 8th house. The house The 8th house is the home of Scorpio and is ruled by Pluto. If you have followed me, you already know where this is going. All right. Whoops, I missed something. Okay, and the 19th degree. At the 19th degree. So I'm going to read verbatim. Jeez, I'm so sorry. I am going to read verbatim from my source. And remember, this is a metaphor. It is, you got to take it into perspective and current context. So the 19th degree of Pisces says, quote unquote, quote, curious about a new priest, townspeople file up to the steps of the cathedral. Once seated, they discover that the sermon addresses issues very close to their hearts, unquote. Okay, so I'm gonna break this down. He, Trump, held a rally where thousands of people gathered to hear what he had to say, which is curious people gather to see a new priest. And once seated, so the 8th house is the home of Scorpio. Scorpio is a sign of purpose, resilience, survival, and fortitude. And it is squaring his north node, and the Sun is at 22 degrees of Uranus. I've already gone over this, but I have to paint a picture for you. So to put this clearly, we're going to go back. Curious about the new priest, townspeople file up to the steps of the cathedral. Once seated, they discover the sermon addresses issues very close to their hearts. Now, as I said, Trump held a rally, townspeople, where hundreds of people gathered to hear what he had to say. The North Node at 20 degrees literally means at risk of one's own life, to be threatened, to kill or be killed. It means assassin, one who kills, or a dangerous person. The Sun at 22 degrees is about an older person. A significant age difference, such as the shooter was 18 and Donald Trump is 78. And the 22nd degree also means delay or later than usual. Those who only perceive problems rather than taking action. Okay, now the interpretation of the events on that day. I hope you're following me still. On this day, Donald Trump, the older man, steps onto the stage, and the Secret Service and local police perceived danger, but they delayed their responses. The would-be assassin, 18 years of age, killed or to be killed 22 degrees after he fires several shots. The would-be assassin is shown in the 8th house of Pisces, but the 8th house is the home of Scorpio and ruled by Pluto. Breaking this down, Pisces is a sign of delusion and mental illness, along with very positive things. But for this report, we have to go with what it was pertaining to. So now the shooter is in an unstable state of mind, delusional, if you will. The police send out warnings. The Secret Service delay those action on those warnings and their response, and Scorpio is the bullet that nicks Trump's ear, leaving it stinging and bleeding. And the 8th house would be the killer is killed. The would-be killer is killed. Okay. I hope that paints the picture of how the astrology played out that day. Now, moving on to the 15th, because Donald Trump's sun is at 22 degrees and his natal north node is at 20 degrees, which, may I add, is a Scorpio degree. These attempts on his life are going to be ongoing issues. On the 15th of September, Donald Trump had the moon in Aquarius at 20 degrees. Again, the Scorpio degree. The moon's shadows equals, the moon is about shadows and security, instinct, and home. The moon is making harmonious aspects, unlike the squares that had brought violence and aggression on the 13th of July. The moon is making harmonious squares to his sun and to his north node. But remember, his sun and his north node are still opposing the south node and his natal moon. And this transit is T-squaring his natal sun, his natal south node and moon, which are in conjunction, and also his natal sun and north node and his natal Mercury at 8 degrees are T-squaring both transits of the nodes. There's a lot of information here. Just keep going. I understand it's very complicated. And I'm going to try to make it uncomplicated. So here we go. To break this down, as I stated before, the 20th degree is about that of an assassin or to be killed or to kill. But because he was in his own personal golf course and because he had security detail, the Secret Service, we were looking for a hidden, which is the moon, dangers. He was spared an actual violent act, but the attempt was still there and is depicted by the transiting T-squares of his natal sun and moon and the north nodes of fate. Now, to save you from any further chance of being bored out of your mind, I'm going to jump to November 3rd of 2024. Donald's chart has 4 squares, but he has 6 opposing oppositions, and that is very gnarly. The square that has me most concerned is the one with Pluto and the sun. His natal Pluto is at 10 degrees of Leo, squaring his transiting sun at 11 degrees of Scorpio. And on top of that, his natal Mars is at 26 degrees of Leo in the first house and is also squaring his transiting Uranus and his midheaven in Taurus in the 10th house. Just looking at these transits and not looking at my references or referencing any of the degrees, just going from my own personal knowledge and understanding of the planets and the aspects, Pluto is a sign of transformation that can also mean the transformation of a soul. It is squaring his transiting sun in the 4th house, and we often refer to heaven as home, and the fourth house is of home and family. There is 100%, this is 100% soul ascension. And his ascending is on the cusp of Leo and Virgo. Because we do not have an interpretation for cusps, we round up to the first degree. And the first degree is in Virgo. And its interpretation is, and I am going to reference my information, my book, because I cannot put it any differently than what this says. So pay attention to this very closely. Virgo at the first degree is, quote, an idealized patriot idolized in a fancy frame, unquote. You need to draw your own conclusions. I myself would tell Donald Trump, on this day, do not leave your home, period. End of story. Okay, that's my short report. I hope that I didn't screw it up too badly. Like I said, with practice, I'll get better. But if you have any questions, just feel free to ask. Talk to you later. Oh, by the way, I do want you to know that later on today, I am going to do another report because tomorrow we have the lunar eclipse and it's got some major impact on us. So I want to just break it down a little bit. It's not going to be lengthy, but it's going to give you some insight. All right, talk to you later. Bye.